These are my takeaways from Dan Brown's Masterclass on writing. So, first, he answers the question, what makes a writer? And he says that you should write in a way that gets people invested and interested, that everyone is a storyteller, no matter what you do, any kind of artist, so painters, musicians, everyone knows how to tell a story. Writing is what makes us different than the animals. So the fact that we can write down our stories and communicate them to other people in that way makes us special. Then he goes on to tell us the elements of a thriller story. He says that this can be the case for other stories as well. You need to have some sort of contract, a promise that you give your reader. So if you read the story, you will have these questions answered. And he says that you absolutely always need to keep your promises. So anything you tell them they're going to figure out or that this is about, you need to come through with that. He also says that you should always make sure that there's a time pressure. So he calls these the 3 C's: the contract, the clock, and the crucible. The time pressure makes it so it's more fast paced and things are moving and not getting bogged down at all. And then a crucible is that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's only one path, one way out, and it's a terrible way, and you don't want to have to go that way, but that's the only way to get there. So he says thrillers are about pace. You need to ask a lot of questions and then give answers very quickly. He talks about inspiration. He says to read as much as you can in your genre to see what you like and what you don't like. And then he says to give readers what they want in a way they don't see coming. So he's looking for things when he's reading that will be something the reader would enjoy, but that they're not going to figure out right away. He also says write something you like. Someone out there will share your taste. He talks about the old adage that creative writing teachers always say, which is write what you know. And he says, don't do that. Write what you want to know. Do your research. Your enthusiasm and what you are writing about will inspire your readers. And he says that you should mark in your books when you're reading or your stories when you're reading where you are interested or where you get bored, where those aha moments are and where things are dragging. So use those things as your inspiration. He goes on to talk about setting. He says that the internet means you can explore the whole world. You can set your story anywhere because you can become an expert on it. Get a character from point A to point B in the most interesting way. So even if it's just going to the store, what is going to happen to them on the way there? Set scenes in interesting places so that you're excited about it. Location brings personality to the story. It's a character and a pillar of your story in and of itself. And then he also adds that when you're describing setting, appeal to your reader's senses. Make sure that you are drawing them in with how it smells and how it sounds and how it tastes. Write to tell a story, not sound smart. So you're not trying to give lots of description that is showing off all the vocabulary you know. Instead, you want to get them right into that scene as quickly as you can. The floor being sticky is far more important than what pattern the floor is. When it comes to character, he says readers read literature to know about characters. He thinks that writing your antagonist can be more fun than your protagonist. There isn't pure evil in life, so you need someone with a moral take on the world, something that they think is the correct way of looking at things, but isn't. And he says that you can be easier on your villain than your hero, meaning that your reader will let you get away with things that are chance or fate when it comes to the villain, but not with the hero. There are universal character tools, so the main character should have some sort of friend that complements them well. So it has the things that they don't have. In his stories, that means usually an expert on something that his character doesn't know anything about, or some sort of a love interest. He also says the potential of romance brings instant tension. Even if there isn't going to be a romance, always having that kind of tease of it there will bring tension to the plot. Characters should naturally come from your plot. Don't spend lots of time dreaming up characters before you start thinking of a story, because you're the master. You can address characters as you run into them. Okay, I need some sort of person that's going to get in the way here. Oh, I need someone to come tell me this information. Add the characters in as you need them. Also, once you have them, you need to know what their motivation is. Why are they doing the things they're doing? It has to be believable at some point. So even if we don't know right now why they're doing that, we need to eventually learn why they would act in that way. Don't just have a lot of characters for the sake of having them, especially in short stories. The relationships are better. It's more focused. You want to have only a couple of characters and then 1 to 2 details introducing that character. If it's not an important character, don't give them a name. Don't really describe what they look like. Just say their occupation or whatever it is. Put characters at extremes if you can, because it creates tension. So maybe they have a completely different way of looking at the world than the other character has. Which brings us to point of view. Don't change point of view randomly. It makes it hard for the reader to follow. You don't want them to feel like they're reading. You want them to feel lost in the story. Have the point of view be of the person who has the most to lose or the most to learn. So write it from each point of view and then see which one comes out the best. He talks about an assassination. Is it going to be the person who's going to be assassinated or the person assassinating them whose point of view it is? Or is it going to be a third party person who is watching the whole thing go down? He also says use section breaks if you change point of view. So if you change point of view between 2 characters, make it immediately clear which point of view you are in. So he thought blah, blah, blah. She felt blah, blah, blah. Help us to know whose head we're in at this point in time. As far as dialogue, he says think of dialogue as music. Make sure it's appropriate that that character would be saying that based on their education, their culture, their attitude. If it shouldn't be coming out of their mouth, then they shouldn't be saying it. He also says you don't need to put he said, she said, because if it truly sounds like the character will know who's talking. And again, this is like music. It's like all the different instruments playing in an orchestra, and you can hear them individually, but they also all work together. He also says that dialogue should have some sort of conflict or revelation. Don't just have them be talking for a purpose. And then if you can have them move while talking, that's better. Hardly ever in stories are people just sitting around talking. As far as research, you want to create a space for your reader to connect the dots and bring their own experiences to them. Give them just enough to get their imagination going. So you're going to need to do your research so they're not taken out of the scene yet again. He says to keep a file of all the important information that you run into, but you won't use all of it. And then don't let research be procrastination. It's really fun to go out on site and see these different places that your setting is going to be, or to know about particular things and how they work together. But if you are weeks in and you still haven't written anything for your short story, you're going to want to make sure that you stop procrastinating and start writing. The last 2 things he talks about are actually writing the story and editing the story. Pick where you want it set, place, then pick an occupation, etc., whatever the story is going to be about. And then think about the main conflict or moral issue. Pick a protagonist. They have to have a tragic backstory, in his opinion. Pick your antagonist. Have some sort of ticking clock. How do they get out of it? Then escalate it. Remind the reader of the stakes. Have secondary characters with backstories, and then make connections that your reader doesn't see coming. If it doesn't serve the story, take it out. And he came up with an example on the spot of a guy who has a vineyard and his wife and kids died in an accident, and now this guy's diverting water away from his vineyard. Turns out that guy's also the guy who killed his family. He gets the help from this lawyer lady. She is ex-wife of the guy who is trying to screw him over, and that's why she hates him, and that's why she's going to help. And they need to figure it out all in 1 week. So that's his thing of using all of this to create his story right on the spot. And then he says that he puts X's in to mark what he needs to go back to so he doesn't have to spend lots of time thinking about other details while he's writing. He says when you're done, when you've finally written everything, print it off, read it like the reader. Mark where you get interested, bored, have that aha moment. Then, if you can, cut your timeline in half. Have it take place in half the time that it originally took place in. Make sure that it's clear when you're doing a flashback. Make sure it's delineated at the beginning and the end so that we know that. He says, all writers are bad sometimes. Know when it doesn't work and be okay with getting rid of it. He also suggests using different color pens or different colors on your computer. So black is good to go, red needs a lot of work, blue needs a little work. He does say though, when you're editing and when you're writing, don't use the internet. Only use it during your research. Then put it away because it's a distraction. He suggests using some sort of system that makes it so you can't go on the internet, or just using notebook and a pen to start. So those are my takeaways from Dan Brown's masterclass on writing.